Before we jump into this episode, I want to remind you that while Caitlin and Sophia are dietitians, we're not your dietitians. This means the information shared in the Food Freedom Fertility podcast is intended to entertain, educate, and inform. It is not a substitute for medical care. This information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making any changes.
We are back with another episode of our interim season, Food Freedom Fertility. And today I have the lovely Ayla Barmmer. Listeners, if you've been around here for any length of time, you've heard of Ayla, you've listened to an episode or two or three with her. We are in love with her. We fully support everything we've ever seen her do. One-on-one. She puts out women's health, nutrition, continuing education. She is inspiring as a woman, a mother, and as a supplement creator. She has really paved the way and changed the landscape in the prenatal nutrition area, and we're just so thrilled not only to have her on here again today, but as you know, this season, FullWell Fertility is sponsoring these episodes. So she's paying for our VA to edit these things, and it's great. It's a wonderful partnership. So we're so happy to have you back, Ayla, and I'm excited to kind of pull back some behind the scenes. It's at least behind the scenes as we're recording this, but we're going to try to release it in sync with your big news. So why don't you go ahead and kind of, I want to say rip off the Band-Aid, but that's really not it. It's not so painful. It's more exciting.
Yeah, well, I mean, thanks for having me on again. I always love to come on, and I'm super excited that FullWell is supporting all the awesome work and content that you guys put out. I mean, you do just such a good job with the podcast.
Thank you.
Just really happy to be here. And I know we've talked about all kinds of topics, but today we're going to cover a little bit about probiotics. I have a probiotic that is coming out, FullWell does, that I formulated to support really three areas that are so important for women's reproductive health. So the vaginal microbiome, gut microbiome, and a healthy stress response. So I'm really excited about this formula. It takes me a long time to formulate things to get it to where I want it, the R&D, the research, just everything involved. And I'd be happy to share some of the things that have gone into it behind the scenes, but also just really excited to talk a little bit about why these things are important, why you might want to consider, or who might consider, taking a probiotic, or just in general, what you can do, to support microbial health, because it does have some direct and indirect ties to fertility specifically, but generally overall, reproductive health.
So amazing. So when we say biome, this is like, I just came back from a vacation where we played this game called Ecologies. Have you heard of this?
No, that sounds up my alley.
I'm going to send it to you. It was so much fun. You basically build biomes, and there's an element of bartering. I need a producer for this biome, and I need a scavenger. Anyway, super dork moment. It ended up being probably one of my most favorite games I've ever played. Whenever we finally meet, maybe you'll get into it and we can have this super fun game of ecologies. But anyway, you do all these.
We'll definitely make it nerdy.
You build these different biomes, right? So we have human biomes. There's no human biome in the game, but maybe we should come out with our own version. Can you talk to us about what a biome is, where we might have it on or in our body, and maybe what we want to consider as related to women's health?
Yeah, I mean, the microbiome really references all of the bacteria, fungi, even viruses, that live throughout our body. Very little of our body is really truly sterile. I think we're finding that even places that we thought once were are not. For example, the uterus, yeah, we know now that there is a uterine biome, and there's bacteria there that are very important for pregnancy, for implantation, for placental function, all of these things. And so when we talk about microbiome, it's not like anything's really in a silo, but there are different areas of our microbiome and places where you'll find different types of bacteria. And overall, you want there to be a balance. That's the simplest way to put it. And there's just so many things, that really are, have an assault on the balance, right? That will really negatively impact it. So, I mean, we've got some of the biggest areas that I think people are most familiar with is definitely our gut microbiome, right? Because I think there's a lot of awareness now around the fact that probiotics, prebiotics, postbiotics, which is relatively a new term that we can talk about, they all influence our digestive health. And when your digestive health is off, for sure. Similarly, when your vaginal microbiome is off, the bacteria that live there need to be in good balance as well. And when that's off, you also know. And that's when you'll see things like yeast infections or bacterial vaginosis. There could be any number of things that develop there. And our microbiome is just so important because it not only manifests when it's out of balance. It doesn't only manifest as negative symptoms. It will do that, but it does a lot of things, in our body. I mean, bacteria are responsible for secreting all types of
neurotransmitters.
Neurotransmitters, vitamins. They help with immune modulation. It's just, they play a role in so many ways that I think we're at the tip of the iceberg with, right? At this point in the research.
I think when I was little, the things I was aware of was yogurt. Like, even as a kid, I remember my mom saying, like, it has good germs in it, essentially. Mm-hmm. So if somebody's coming into this and they're like, when I take antibiotics, my doctor tells me to almost eat yogurt, how do we take that to the next level in terms of why is that happening and what other foods would we maybe want to consider as options other than yogurt?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, eat yogurt and we can do a little bit. Right. Yeah, I mean, we have research now that really shows, that there are specific genuses, species, strains of probiotic that will do different things in the body. And not only probiotics, and that's the live bacteria that we need to kind of populate throughout our body, but there's also prebiotics. Prebiotics are your undigestible carbohydrates, so fiber, inulin, oligosaccharides. In fact, in breast milk, right? Breast milk is very rich in oligosaccharides, which is how baby's gut, in part, gets populated with good bacteria very early on. And so, there's the probiotics, prebiotics, there's even postbiotics. And so those are things that as they go through your system, they actually help to stimulate positive things throughout the body. So I kind of think of like Saccharomyces boulardii as being a really great option for a postbiotic. Some people might call it a probiotic for when you've gone on an antibiotic, because that is one that will help to secrete some important kinds of things that your gut lining will produce to help protect and restore some of the microbial balance. To some extent, your body will do it. There's a little bit of natural rebalancing that happens from just like eating after antibiotics, but there's also this like opportunistic time. That's how I really would explain it to practice clients is, it's a really sensitive time after something like, antibiotic use, because the good bacteria could get back in there and populate, but you also have the opportunity for the not good bacteria, viruses, pathogens, things like that to sort of take over. And so what you can do is take some really specific, probiotic strains that are meant to really repopulate the right things, so that would be one thing. I think really focusing on those prebiotics, so your fiber and a good varied diet. It's a time to be cautious, I think, of a lot of excess sugar and alcohol and things that we know already will disrupt the microbiome further. And so, yogurt, but in addition to that, being more targeted with some additional strategies really early on after antibiotic use can make a huge difference to making sure that you don't swing towards like an imbalanced state.
I want to take a minute out of this episode and talk to you about our partner, Fertility Cloud. We decided to partner with Fertility Cloud this season because we have worked with women all over the nation and we have heard the same issues arise again and again. My doctor can't see me for another 8 weeks. I had to wait 3 months to see a specialist, and even then, they didn't really tell me anything. Or there's no one in my small town that knows anything about my situation or can help me. And that's so common because unless you live in a major metropolitan area or a place that has grand medical universities, and honestly, sometimes even then it's still an issue, it's really hard to find fertility specialists who can give you tailored, customized help for your unique fertility situation. And that, my friend, is exactly what Fertility Cloud does for you. They offer everything you need, but right in your home because it's fully online. Another perk is they often have same day or next day appointments, so no waiting weeks and weeks and weeks in order to be seen by someone. And my favorite thing of all, really the pièce de résistance and the reason we are partnered with Fertility Cloud for this season, is they have a love and a passion for helping families grow. It is why they do what they do. It is why they wake up in the morning. It is why they have this world-class staff who cannot wait to step in and help you along your journey. So if this sounds like what you have been dreaming of, click the link in our show notes and go to fertilitycloud.com for $50 off your first visit.
Yeah. I think a lot of times when people think about fertility, pregnancy, and then postpartum, like if we're talking about those in 3 distinct areas, if you've been pregnant, you know that kind of towards the end of pregnancy, your vaginal microbiome plays a big role in what labor and delivery might actually look like for you, because you can have a strain of bacteria that's actually very common in our bodies. But if you test positive for it, then you have to be on antibiotics in labor. You are encouraged and strongly urged by most providers to be on antibiotics in labor because there are negative health ramifications that could potentially occur if you are not. But outside of that, I kind of feel like in the scope of fertility and even pregnancy, we aren't really focusing enough on having a healthy gut microbiome. And when you think about the gut and you think about the idea of growing an entire human from 2 cells within your body, there's a lot of nourishment that you need, and you can't get to that nourishment if your gut microbiome and overall gut ecology and health is compromised. And so I think that, like, from a very 5,000, 10,000 foot view, you can back up and go, even if I'm not in the weeds and really getting into like, oh, I'm going to do some sort of stool test and figure out exactly what is here and what's there. And like, you don't have to be that granular to know like, hey, it could be really helpful to support this and see better nourishment, better absorption of nutrients, and see that really manifest in more energy and better health and improved fertility. So I kind of want to focus a little bit on that area specifically because most of our listeners are in that trying to conceive phase, if not struggling to conceive. And what hope do they have when they think about gut health and how to improve it, and potentially using something like your probiotic that's coming out to be an assistance in that?
I guess, yeah, just bringing it back up to that 10,000 feet view, as you said, I think that, I would say confidently that most of the women that came to see me in practice who were struggling with fertility, one of the first things that would come up, because I think they intuitively knew that there was a connection, was, that their digestive health was off. Like, they know there's something going on with their gut. It has to be playing a role, or they think it might be, but they don't know how. So that's something that I've heard a lot of over the years, and they're not wrong. I think that our intuitions are usually pretty spot on when we really listen, right? And it's true. I mean, it really does start with how we break down and can utilize the food that we're taking in, right? I mean, we want to be making great food choices, right, to support our fertility and overall reproductive health. But how well are you actually digesting and utilizing that food? And your microbiome, particularly in your gut, plays a huge role in how effectively you can do that, and it comes down to enzymes and bile salts and all those digestive juices as well. But actually those are even influenced to some degree by the good bacteria in our gut and just general bacteria in our gut. So there's, and even how fast food moves through your system is impacted by the microbiome to some degree, right? And so there's such a close relationship between a healthy, balanced microbiome and, a healthy, balanced diet. And so I think that piece, it really kind of starts there. But then getting even more specific, we know that a healthy, balanced microbiome is essential for successful implantation, for maintaining a pregnancy. We're seeing really growing research, growing evidence linking the microbiome to fertility specifically, and even to some really severe pregnancy outcomes and complications, and so I think that the challenge is, how do you really test for, we can do a stool test, you can do like a vaginal swab, you can do things like this, although I would argue, as you pointed out, that may not even be necessary, right? Like there's so many things that you can just do that will have a positive impact and you can trust will have a positive impact without going so
spending
deep as
so much
testing.
money.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
exactly.
always, listeners, like, you want to test a good practitioner out, ask them how this test, they want to run a very expensive, kind of in the functional medicine test zone, I would say. How is this really going to impact our intervention? Because if we could just do $300, $500 worth of quality food, the right type of supplement, maybe a probiotic, spending some time and focus on how to cook vegetables, like what other foods can support a healthy gut microbiome. Sometimes that focus will take you further than like this very granular thing where we're like, oh, you're very low in this actually very beneficial bacteria, so eat more red foods. Like, I can just tell you to eat more red foods because there's some bacteria that like the deep purples and the reds without having to test that. Everybody should be doing that, right? And so we are so glad you're enjoying this episode, and we want to take a brief moment to talk about one of our sponsors, FullWell. FullWell is not only a reproductive nutrition supplement company created and formulated by a registered dietitian, but they are a company that has the highest quality standards. They use the most bioavailable ingredients in the right amounts to ensure that you're getting the most out of your supplement. And let me tell you about one specific supplement, the Fertility Booster. The Fertility Booster is a combination of adaptogenic herbs and powerful antioxidants. Oxidative stress is something that occurs in every single body, and when it's accumulated, it can deplete antioxidants. Upping the antioxidants in the body by turning on the antioxidant protection system through food and supplementation is one way to support the body's free radical defenses and better support fertility overall. Oxidative stress impacts all humans, and this is one thing I love about the Fertility Booster. It helps supercharge both egg and sperm quality. You've heard about stress and how it can impact so many things in our body, and how so many people just say, hey, just relax and you'll get pregnant. Well, ashwagandha is actually an adaptogenic herb, and it can help reduce cortisol levels and increase sexual function. So the next time someone tells you to just relax, you can say, hey, no, I don't need to just relax. I'm taking the Fertility Booster by FullWell and supporting myself in this way. When we talk about powerful antioxidants, one of them that is the king of the show is coenzyme Q10. In its reduced form, it functions as an antioxidant in cell membranes and lipoproteins, helping to optimize fertility. And the queen of the show, in my opinion, N-acetylcysteine. It's a supplement form of cysteine, a semi-essential amino acid that benefits fertility via its role as a precursor to glutathione. It can also support healthy cervical mucus. So next time you're ordering your FullWell Fertility Prenatal, Make sure that you grab a hold of their fertility booster so you and your partner can get a healthy dose of these antioxidants and stress support. Use the code FFF20 at checkout to get 20% off your first order. And now back to our show. I think sometimes you really got to zoom out and go like, okay, when and why? And I think that that's a fair question in the supplement realm too, right? So like, where and why does a probiotic like this make the most sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to piggyback on what you said, my philosophy with testing and practice was always, and it evolved to this because I mean, as a younger practitioner, newer in the functional medicine space, I remember being very excited about
you get
all
a Dutch
the things
test.
you could test for.
You get a microbiome test. Like we'll do cortisol.
Yeah, right. But I evolved as I learned and really, I think a lot of this testing shouldn't be done right out of the gate. It's after you've done some foundational work, and then you kind of see what's left. What can't you explain or figure out, or what would change the treatment plan, right? So that's the kind of thing you want from your health practitioner to understand is like, does this make sense now, or do we do some things that we know we're going to do anyway, right? And then you do the testing later to like fine tune, or not at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, probiotics, this has been, so just to kind of, I think giving a backstory of how I even came to formulate the product might help, because my philosophy around probiotics has generally been that your best bet is to focus on fiber and prebiotics first, and really a balanced, varied diet and food sources of probiotics, and make sure that that's covered, right? And then it's also to address some really other foundational things. Like one of those big things I would say is really properly chewing your food and breathing while you're eating. And I say that because one of the things that really influences our probiotic balance in the body, our microbiome, is the digestive juices that we secrete. And a lot of people, due to stress and eating too fast and eating over the kitchen sink, aren't producing enough of those, and it can really disrupt things. You wind up with undigested food in your gut, that can kind of lead to some imbalances. There's all sorts of ways in which that happens. So I think some foundational things to really focus on first before a probiotic are those as a variety of plant-based foods, a variety of colors, as you mentioned. I mean, truly, the different colors can be supportive in different ways. Chewing, slowing down, and really making sure that you're doing those things first. Then, I think during the stages of life where a microbial imbalance is most risky, like when it comes to fertility, the reproductive years, fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, that's when I think it just makes a really, really good sense to invest in a good probiotic that is meant for addressing, that stage of life specifically. And so that's how I kind of came around to the probiotic that I formulated for FullWell that I love, to offer that extra insurance support to help during this stage of life. And I'll just mention that, probiotics kind of work in a lot of different ways, and they'll work a little differently in everybody to some extent. We've got good research, really great research on the strains that we're using. But, the effects of taking a probiotic really depends on, in general, I think everyone needs to know it really depends on the species and the strain. So it's really important that you know that the probiotic you're taking has got a species and strain in it that has specifically been studied to do what it's claiming to do, and it's in the right amounts. There are other considerations too, but those are two really important things. And what happens as when you take a probiotic is, to some extent, it has like a transient action where it's going to populate the microbiome to a minimal degree, mostly while you're taking it. So a lot of the benefits of taking a probiotic are while you're taking it. There will be some longer term benefit as well, but it's one of those things where I think taking consistently a probiotic as a protective measure pre-conception, particularly when you're trying to conceive, throughout pregnancy and again postpartum is really, really smart, because it does, again, protect from a lot of the assaults that we have generally on our microbiome. So I'll stop there.
So when we're talking about like the specifics, so you said specific species, and then within the specific species, specific strains. I know what that means, but our listeners might not. So like when you say species, if somebody were to be looking at a label, what would be their their way to identify this is the species, this is the strain, and if there's any merit or benefit in taking something like it?
Yeah. So first you have the genus, which is like Lactobacillus. A lot of us know that. That's what you're going to find. Something in that genus will be in yogurt. So that's the genus. Then you have the species, which is like Acidophilus. And then sometimes in addition to that, you might have a subspecies or a strain. And usually the strain is referred to as like a number. So we use Lactobacillus acidophilus. One of the three strains is Lactobacillus acidophilus LA14. That's kind of the nickname for the strain that we use. And that's important because that, when you look to the research and trace it back, it will specifically in research studies, or it should in a good, well-designed study, define what, not just the genus and the species, but what strain in addition is being used. And it used to be, and you probably know this too, I observed over the years in the probiotic worlds and the supplement worlds that there was very little being defined on the label as to what it was. You know, it might be just Lactobacillus acid or L. acidophilus, and that's all you'd get. And so you really don't know, you know, was it that specific strain of L. acidophilus that did the thing, or was it a different one? So now there's good labels, and at least those that are following compliance, regulations will have that information on it. And then, the next thing you need to look for is how much is in it per serving too. And I mean, this gets into, and I don't necessarily expect everyone listening to do this deep of a dive on every single thing, but the amount of each probiotic also traces back, or it should trace back to what the study says is needed to have the effect, right? So this is, I mean, these are the questions that you could definitely ask a company, right? It's like, how are you verifying the claim, that you're saying? Like, I think the most important tip that I have in general when taking supplements is don't just blindly trust the claims on the label. Companies are supposed to back those up with really solid research, but the policing of the industry is a little lacking, right? So it's a matter of making sure the strain is specific, the genus, strain, and species, right? Genus, species, and strain, I should say. And the amount is enough to do what it says it's going to do in it. And the way that we formulate our product, and this is typical for a good probiotic. There's a lot on the market that you would think are good and are doing really sketchy things. But that aside, you want to put in quite a bit more probiotic of the strain in the formula at the start than ultimately what you're trying to deliver on the label, because naturally these probiotics will die off. It does not matter what a brand says, if they say it is completely shelf stable, that, it's guaranteed, no matter what. The way that brands are getting away with saying shelf stable is they're putting in so much more of the bacteria that they're accounting for the die-off, because what they're trying to do is say it has what the label has on it at the time of expiration. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So talk to me, in the formulation that FullWell's releasing, are there 3 different probiotic strains in it?
Yes. So we've got we've got the L. acidophilus LA14, and that is one that is specifically or particularly good, along with L. raminosus HN001. Really great for the vaginal microbiome, overall digestive support, like the overall gut microbiome, and supporting a healthy microflora in the gut. It helps with the vaginal pH. It's been studied and to be really supportive during pregnancy. It's supporting that vaginal microbiome and then postpartum as well. L-raminosis specifically it has been shown to support immune health for expectant mothers and infants. When the mother takes it. Yep. It's been shown to help support blood glucose levels during pregnancy. And also, which I really particularly loved, helping support a positive postpartum mood, because I know I struggled pretty badly with postpartum anxiety, depression. And so whenever I look at formulating things for FullWell, I do think, what do I want? What do my patients want? What would be good for them? What would my friends and family want? What's really needed? So those two work hand in hand. Those are our Lactobacillus acidophilus and Lactobacillus rhamnosus. And then there's what I think is really different about FullWell's probiotic is we've got this third strain, L. paracasi, LPC37, and that's the one that really helps support a positive or a healthy stress response.
Interesting.
It's been shown in the research to support relaxation, psychological and physiological stress response management, overall mental well-being, and then even a healthy blood pressure during stressful times. So we know that the vaginal microbiome can be disrupted by stress, both physiological and psychological stress. And so to me, it made really good sense to put a third strain in that really addresses that.
I honestly can't think of a probiotic that somebody's marketed to me to try and get patients to take that's ever brought that up. When I think about stress, is it not just overall stress on the human, but also stress on the microbiome? Or is it like, how did they measure stress to say that it supports stress?
Yeah, in some of the studies, it was really looking at stress hormone production. So cortisol was a big one that was measured. So stress hormones overall, and then the overall changes to the microbiome. And then they do consider pregnancy as a whole a stressor, which I think we can all kind of agree with. Just a physiological stressor right on the body.
We're taking a break from this episode to talk to you about one of our wonderful sponsors called NutriSense. So this isn't just another health trend. This is a program that helps everyone take control of their health and fertility by making lasting changes based on their unique needs. NutriSense is loved by over 100,000 members, and it offers a unique combination of expert nutritionist support from credentialed experts with continuous glucose monitoring data insights. So it's science plus a human touch, and it offers one-on-one support from the expert nutritionist team at NutriSense. So basically what NutriSense does is it gives you the support you need along with the data that you're getting from a continuous glucose monitor. Combining those two together with NutriSense offers you a science-backed way to take control of your health unlike anything else out there. It's access to the continuous glucose monitor as well as guidance from a nutritionist so that you can interpret this data and turn it into lasting results in your body. If you've listened to this podcast for more than 90 seconds, you know that we really don't believe in like a one-size-fits-all nutrition plan, and that things really need to be tailored to an individual for their personal health and fertility goals in order to succeed. And that's really what NutriSense offers. If this sounds like something you're interested in, which, P.S., you should be interested in this, head over to nutrisense.io/FFF and use the code FFF50 to get $50 off your first month with NutriSense.
I was just talking to somebody about blood sugar regulation and the importance in all the P's of your lifetime as a woman, like puberty, pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause. And one thing that you said kind of harkened back to that in my mind, that this is kind of one of those times where you don't want to gamble on things. And if you're listening to this and you're struggling to conceive, this is something that could benefit you. And Ayla, talk to me a little bit about the risk or the harm a supplement like this could have.
Yeah, what's nice about, this product is there's effectively no risk or real harm that's going to come of taking this. The most, on the most extreme end of the spectrum, someone might experience a little bit of an upset stomach, but with strains like this and the delivery form and it's unexpected, for it to really upset your stomach. So I think that's the worst of it. The best outcome is that it really is providing key bacteria that are very protective during a stage of life where you really do have a lot going on, and nobody's perfect with their diet. And even if you were, there's still a lot of environmental stressors, and so I think that's where supplements come in, right? I mean, I'm always going to say food first, but when there's kind of a no-brainer thing, I mean, other than, you've got to I'd say it's a no-brainer in that there's really no harm and it's only going to really have a potential positive impact. And you can feel confident in that because we've got really solid research and our delivery form, which I'll talk about in just a minute if we have time, but will help, it can really give you that confidence, right? I think that you do want to consider, if budget is a consideration, then I do like to mention that for me, and I don't know if you'd agree with this, but in terms of supplements, the order of operation or what to prioritize for me would be, a prenatal multivitamin, an essential fatty acid supplement first, as your foundation. And then, I think this comes in a close third unless you need additional iron, and then that would be in that spot. So in case that's helpful, trying to figure out like how to prioritize budget wise, right? Because probiotics are not inexpensive to make. That is one thing that I discovered in this process. And one of the things that we've done is to really ensure the efficacy and the safety of our probiotics specifically is to package them in individual blister packs, actually. So each capsule is in a little blister pack, and you get each dose. So it's extra protected from the humidity in the air, light, temperature changes. All of these things are what degrade probiotics faster. And we also will be shipping on ice, like on freezer packs, and recommending that you put them in the refrigerator because, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of marketing dollars behind some really big brands that are, saying things like totally shelf stable, it doesn't need to be refrigerated. They're having you like transfer things from a container to another container. All of it's a mess to me in terms of, supplements, but definitely when it comes to probiotics. So those are some extra measures that we've taken to ensure the safety, in addition to third-party testing for contaminants.
So that's so cool. I mean, just hearing all of that, like I'm so excited to try it personally. Somebody listening might go, how does this thing that I take in my mouth impact my vaginal microbiome? Like, yeah. Are there like gymnastics these little germs are doing to get from my belly down to my vagina? I'd love to hear any thoughts or wisdom you have around that for our listeners.
I know. To be honest, I think there's a lot that we don't understand, about how that all works, other than I can say that, things are not staying neatly packaged in one part of the body. Like our gut microbiome influences our vaginal microbiome, and then our uterine microbiome. Like all these things are interacting in our body, which does make some intuitive sense, right? What I can say is we can at least go back to the research, right? And we know that the studies have shown that that taking these 3 strains, which are the ones that I've dug into the deepest, in a normal, capsule, which we put it in, right? It doesn't have to be. This is a question I think that some folks might have. Doesn't need to be in a special capsule that's only digested in your gut and resists the stomach acid and does all these things. That's actually just very dependent on what the strain is. And these strains have a really unique ability to withstand the stomach acid
if that were
digestive
true,
juices.
Listen to this, people. If that were true of everything, I'm sure there is some level of that. But then how would you get benefits from yogurt or benefits from kimchi or benefits from your kombucha? Like, all of the probiotics that are coming in those foods are exposed to your stomach acid.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes when you step back, it's like, they're good questions. I'm not trying to make anybody feel like it's not a warranted question or that they're stupid, but just stepping back with some simple logic, like somehow other foods that we're eating, and granted, in foods, you're going to get exponentially more than we're going to pack into a probiotic.
Yeah.
But with saying that, it does lead me to kind of a question of, is there, in the research and studies that you've read, like the best protocol or way to take a probiotic? Do you take it with food? Do you take it without food? Do you take it before bed? Do you take it on an empty stomach? Like, do you have recommendations for people when they take this probiotic?
Yeah, this has honestly been one of the most debated things, among, I think, health practitioners and, that I've seen over years. One of many things that's debated, right? But yeah, I think there's a lot of strong opinions on it, but none of what I can see is really based on any hard evidence, right? I think the most important thing is what's going to work for you and be consistent. I do know that, taking it alongside other supplements like a prenatal or your fish oil or iron, that's not going to negatively impact the absorption. I would say that, things that naturally contain some lactoferrin, like dairy products, maybe there's some slight benefit to taking it with that. But overall, I think it's just a matter of taking it consistently with or without food. The only thing you would take it away from, I think, would be antimicrobial herbs, like some sort of antimicrobial or antibiotic type of a thing that you're taking, that you take separately. Work with a practitioner in your protocol for that, But because often if you're really needing to go on a course of antibiotics, and you generally, you want to get a specific probiotic.
Right. Or you're treating something like SIBO with crazy strong herbs. Like you might be throwing your money away while you're doing that. Maybe not completely, but it might be better off to take that after you do the kind of killing phase of a protocol.
Yeah. So excited to tell you that the PCOS app is sponsoring this podcast episode. The PCOS app is a one-stop shop for all things PCOS. It's also your meal guide and inspo all in one. If you love listening to me on this podcast and you feel like, hey, I want Caitlin to be in my ear every day encouraging me about how to manage my PCOS, then you have to go download the PCOS app. We have curated articles to answer questions that you have about PCOS. There are short snippets in the PCOS Answers podcast exclusive to the PCOS app. We also have recipes where I not only give you the recipe, but teach you within the recipe itself what I have done to make it more blood sugar and hormone supporting so that you can take your own recipes and make them more PCOS friendly. If you've been looking for the Google of all things PCOS, with the filter of compassion and expertise that you get from Caitlin Johnson, RD, then you have found it in the PCOS app. Head to your Android or Apple store today, download it, and let's hang out.
So,
yeah, I would say so.
Backing up like one more step, I don't know why this thought came through my head, but if somebody's like, oh, I could take it with dairy, what if they're like, ooh, I don't need dairy? Is this a good thing that I take because maybe I'm not getting the benefits of these specific probiotic strains and species because they do so well in dairy?
Yeah, I mean, you absolutely do see like the lactobacillus strains most concentrated in dairy. I mean, you do see it in some fermented foods. So, I mean, I think if you're someone that doesn't do dairy at all, then, fermented foods like kimchi and sauerkraut and like, I always loved like real pickles, like fermented ginger carrots, like those are really great. So you can get it in other ways. I mean, the nice thing about a probiotic is, it's kind of, a gamble. You're getting a whole variety of different probiotics when you're getting it from food. But if you've got sort of a targeted goal, right, which is, I think during fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, right, like that's really to protect and reduce risk, then I really would go for, a probiotic that has got identified strains to do what they say they're, do what they're supposed to do, right, in the appropriate amounts. It's just it's a good way to ensure that you're getting that level of support,
One way you can save money while taking supplements is to take less of them, but ones that actually work and are addressing your needs. Like this whole game of like, oh, what did Sally down the street take to get pregnant? I should try that because it worked for her. Like, we're not doing this around here. I agree with Ayla. Everything she said. Prenatal, optimally a fish oil, but if you can't do fish for some reason, getting some sort of omega-3, some fatty acid supplement, and then layering something like this on could be really helpful. Maybe you could save money on the ones that you bought at Costco that probably aren't that great. Like they were a lot for the amount of money you spent, but maybe they're not doing what you need them to do. And at the end of the day, that's not super helpful, right?
Yeah. And I know that you're kind of, in this world too now. And I mean, one thing that I have really learned since, starting FullWell was what I suspected when I got into it, right? Is there's a lot of perhaps well-meaning in some cases, right? But like marketing professionals behind dietary supplements. There are very few registered dietitians, nutrition experts, health practitioners behind dietary supplements. They might consult, they might be part of like a board that are offering some level of, consultation, but I found that can be kind of limited. And so, I think, with myself, with you, you've got the expertise, to really go through the research, understand what's going to work, formulate smart, effective products, and then know what to test for, are transparent about it, right? Like all these things just matter, and kind of on a mission to make sure, because there's just an overwhelming amount of options out there and a lot of marketing dollars.
A lot of marketing dollars.
You think that it's the best thing.
I sat next to on a plane the CMO of Ritual. And it was very eye-opening what we talked about. And she literally turned to me and she's like, our like patented capsule that makes it through your stomach. She's like, do you think that really works? And I just laughed. I thought,
like, oh no.
You're asking. Oh, no. That's scary.
Yeah. It is scary. And I know exactly how that technology works. It's so funny because I was, working with a manufacturer and they're like, oh, you could do this. And I was like, I have no interest in that. I want to do what is going to work, what is effective. We do not need to do the smoke and mirrors thing.
Yeah, it's not the way we do it. Okay, well, we're coming up on the end of the episode. Is there anything else that you're like, this was so exciting when we formulated, or we're on a mission with this product to help this one pregnancy symptom, or just anything else about this that you want to shout from the hilltop? You're on your hilltop. We're here for your soapbox.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I get so excited about, like you guys, about the things that we can do pre-conception, not just to get to a positive pregnancy test, but what can we do to actually get to a healthy baby and help build healthy families, right? And to me, that really means reducing pregnancy risks, those really scary complications that can have an impact, right, on families. And I think there's so much that we can do pre-conception we've just got such better data and good research now that really supports, but what women and men, do pre-conception will reduce pregnancy complications, risk, and ultimately influence the health of future generations. So that's what gets me so excited about anything that I'm doing these days and products that I'm formulating, is that this is really empowering information that I don't think you can get, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you can, right? But a lot of people just don't get, right? All the interventions and all of the support comes so far down the process, right? That we're missing this key window, and I think your listeners are all in it. Like the things you're doing now have a huge impact. So that's exciting to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, nobody's thankful that they have infertility, but if you have more time to prepare and it really helps you impact your behaviors that make you healthier. I was walking down the stairs an hour ago, like, okay, I don't really want to work out today, but I told myself I was going to do a 20-minute yoga flow and get on the bike for 20 minutes. And as I was walking down the stairs thinking, like, we're going to record this episode later, And I'm so excited to talk to you. I was thinking, like, there's no shortcut to health. Like, you can take a probiotic and a prenatal, but that's not going to replace eating nourishing foods when you're pregnant. And Ayla will be the first one to tell you that. So you still have to do the things. Like, I could be taking a GLP-1 medicine right now to lose weight, or I could try to eat well and exercise. And there just really is no shortcut for the hard work, what the hard work is going to do for you. And it's kind of okay that it's hard. I think a lot of people run away from hard because hard has some discomfort. But the other thing that hard has when you overcome it is this sense of like, wow, look what I can do. Wow, I'm so strong. Wow, I learned how to prepare a food I've never liked before, and now I like it. Like, that gave me goosebumps. And it should be that cool to you. It shouldn't just be like, oh, now I'll eat cucumbers. I never liked them until I put lime and salt and feta next to it. Like, but that's cool. You should get excited about that. And I think that, you know, looking at these things as a help, a support, an adjunct, and also trying to find nourishing probiotic rich foods and nourishing foods that these probiotics need to function and carry out their roles in your body. Like, you get rid of all the microbes, your body doesn't function. It's wild, but it's true. Like, we're not in this alone. We got billions of things going on inside of us we need to support. So yeah. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. I would be remiss if I didn't give you an opportunity to celebrate something in our Yeah Girl segment. And so I would love to hear from you, something that's been encouraging, exciting, something worth celebrating lately.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, maybe maybe this isn't that exciting, but I did just get back from vacation. I think you said you did too. Mm-hmm. We went on like kind of a lake vacation and had a boat, and the kids were like fishing, and we just had really good quality family time. And life
outdoor.
gets so busy. And outdoors.
Amazing.
Yeah, we spent 90% of our days outside, you know, and it felt really great because it was like, you know, life's so busy, right? And we just are in our routines and like going through it. It just was like this hard pause, you know, and we all really disconnected and just had a lot of fun. So that was really nice.
Yeah, girl. I think that's great. I'm just going to piggyback and say I just got back from 2 weeks. My cousin owns this incredible home on the Puget Sound in Seattle. And we had a similar, like, a lot of outdoor time, a lot of playing in tide pools and collecting shells, and just lovely. We went on ferry rides, and it was the best. And I drank too much. And so I'm literally thinking, like, I need to go take a probiotic now. I've disrupted things. I may have slept more and read a book I wanted to read, but there's some internal stress I need to love on a little bit.
You know what to do. You'll get it rebalanced.
All right. Well, listeners, thanks for tuning in. We're so happy to have you. Make sure you head over to FullWell. Is it FullWellFertility.com or FullWell.com?
Yes.
FullWellFertility.com. And check out this new probiotic. What is the name of it? Do we have that?
It's our women's probiotic. Great from preconception through postpartum, but it's great for women at any stage of life, really. I know I'm excited to take it. Obviously.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, listeners, head on over there and check this product out. We love FullWell. We love supporting them. We're so thankful to have Ayla's support and her team for this podcast. If you like this, love this, learn something, we say this every episode, head over, rate, review, so that we can bring this information to you and so that others can find us too. Have a great day.
Hey, it's Sophia. If you love the show and want to continue your health and fertility journey using our resources, head on over to foodfreedomfertility.com for show notes, links to products and services, information about our guests, and our newsletter. Again, that's foodfreedomfertility.com. Thanks for listening.